Mr. Doug Wallace from East Bay Mud, and after Mr. Wallace is Mr. Jim Hall from Discovery Bay. Mr. Wallace.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Council. My name is Doug Wallace. I'm representing East Bay Mud today and every day. For the duration of our involvement with the Delta Council, we have strived to assist you and provide constructive feedback in order to advance the plan, not to change your direction or to rethink the statute. We did submit a comment letter 9 pages long last week. I'd like to curry your favor today by not reading it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But I will summarize because there's some important points that I'd like to highlight for you. There are two perspectives we come with. One is our experience with the Office of Administrative Law and what they normally look for in a regulatory package. And secondly, of course, as a potentially regulated party, we're looking at these regulations and seeing some structural problems. And I will try to summarize. The basis that we reviewed these regulations on was looking at the criteria in the Administrative Procedures Act, several of them including necessity, non-duplication, consistency, and clarity. And we looked at these regulations and see quite a bit of verbiage that is essentially not necessary. It's narrative in nature. We have a number of definitions that have policy language woven into them, and so the simplicity is missing. And in fact, when we really boil down what's in these regulations, we think that you and the regulated parties would be a lot better off if they were slimmed down significantly. They could be clarified by limiting the proposal to straightforward regulatory requirements that you're empowered to promulgate by statute, and removing narrative statements that talk about policies of the state or items that the Council contemplates, or discussions of what the State Board, for example, could or should do. That's a recommendation, essentially, that is not a regulation that you'll see in whatever section of the regs. I'm not going to. It's in there concerning the State Board flows and their process for amending the flow requirements. Definitions are very long and complex. As I said, they include actionable language. I'm going to give a couple examples, too, of where we feel that there are some regulations here that are simply not necessary. One, there are a number, but I want to keep my time here brief. In the improved transparency in water contracting, these provisions are already required by DWR and the Bureau, and there's no evidence really provided that the compliance with those requirements is currently inadequate. So these are what we call duplicative, and just don't need to be in the regulations. And secondly, just another example is the Council has included a section on prioritization of state investments in Delta levies, a very critical responsibility of the Council. But that's not something you have to regulate yourselves. This is something you could adopt by guideline, or it's in the Delta Plan. A tremendous amount of the regulatory language simply reiterates what's in the Delta Plan, and I think that's where that should be. Anybody who's going to be submitting a consistency determination, we should hope they've read the Delta Plan. They don't need to have it reiterated and re-explained in the regulatory language. In our experience with OAL, this is not the kind of package. They would be looking at this, and we will be a little surprised if they accept it the way it's written. On a substantive level, we want to ask the Council to reconsider the inclusion of actions as covered actions that have a beneficial impact on achieving the co-equal goals. I've heard the explanation for this from staff. I understand it, but overall the concern is when you look at the near-term actions, they've unfortunately become sometime maybe actions. There are already so many obstacles in the way of achieving things we all recognize are actions that need to take place in the Delta, and including those as a covered action, submitting a consistency determination with all the costs involved is another regulatory barrier. And so I know that's part of the Delta Plan, but we would ask you to rethink that. So again, my closing comment is that we think this needs another shot as you look and consider all the comments that you've received from stakeholders. Look at the APA standards for the regulations and see if we can be a little simpler with them.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.